So here all the service definition. That means if you define your own service or your own repository, then you have more control over the implementations, and then you can use a lot of your exception handling tools concept, and you can have, that means you have more control with your implementation. So here is so we did our service definition, the interfaces, and then we try to implement those interfaces. So here the implement interfaces definitions, implementation. So you implements the your interfaces, and this is our implemented classes and rated as a service. And then you inject your dependencies, AutoWare, and then you put it your user define repository that's you already define in the JPA repository, and use the respective implementation. So you see the file upload repository, all user, find all users, and then find all or user by ID, and then delete the user, and then update the user. So you search for each user ID user, and update the user informations to the implementations. So here the user role definition, because we didn't did it yet, we have to be done this one, and this is the download, the part of the one of the download service implementations, and then this is the upload information. So you upload files, so it's a multi-part. You upload your multi-part files or list of files. So that means you get your multi-part files and put it the survey and the file information, and put it in store in the database level. So this is the service definition, interface definition, and the service implementations part. So now let's minimize it. And now we need to define our endpoints. This is the part of the important part. So this is our resource definition. I call it like resource. That means your all controllers is this package. So we have this implementation, so the REST control annotations, and then REST request mapping. So you go to your local host or whatever it is, your machine number and your application port number, and go put it the user registrations. I will show detail in the server side test, and also in the client side in the Postman. So you push here there, and then you get all IDs, get a specific user register user ID user, and you get add one user, and update the one user, and then delete the one user. In the same way, you can do all of them. So user role. So I saw the upload part. So it's the same things. Is you go to the URL, and here is the call. You have service file upload service, and that's the service definition. You call this service. So it's a post request because you try to upload the file, create, and this is the path of the URL. So request mappings, you put in multiple multi-part files, the list of files, and you inject each of the file in the database systems, and then download file registration part. So that means each of the repository, you have the for part of the implementation. The endpoint definition, just here we did just complete the user registration part, but because the user registration part is your parent class, and parent is containing the file upload and also the address informations, and then all of things is because here is the definition. See, it's contained the user role, what the role of this specific user, because I already talked about this one, the user logging mechanism. That means every user, the registered user, has some sort of roles. Is it admin user, is a public user, is a private user, or is a desktop office user, or something like that. So that means every user, and then after that you have more control in the GUI part. Even though in the API part, then you have, so okay, if it's this user, then do this. If it's this user, then do this one. If it's this user is admin user, he don't need to upload something. He don't need it, because as an officer or the executive user, then he need to upload files. But in the admin user, he have an admin role, and of course he needed his own address information. That's why I implement like this way. The user registration contain this one, and then did all the implementation part, the service definition part, service implementation part, and resource definition. Even though we can continue the more for other part of the implementations, because this is the initial release for the end client to see the really the basic functionalities for these API, the RESTful APIs. So our implementation is done, our model is done, implementation is done. So what we need to now to generate the release versions. So we generate the version. Before that do that, we have requirements to do the server side test. So that means before we generate our endpoints, our REST clients, and then we had to run our server test. So I did some part of the server test in here. You see the unit test. So use the registration part and go there, and you say we define our because every user has multiple roles, and you see the annotations like Spring Boot projects, and we use the Spring Boot test, even though test cases or the structure, the unit test structure, even though you can JUnit run and run with the Spring Runner, and then you inject the service definition. That's what you have it, and then you set you implement the information. So every user has multiple roles. So this user has a 1, 2, 3 roles as a officer, and then dex admin and admin office and admin dex, and then you put it your roles. So you inject your role definitions, and then you put it in your file. So as image files, you see here the picture in the video files, even though you can put it here like one example. So the file uploaded and file name, file content coming from the process, and you set it here, and then define your upload and address information for the user. So the trace address, I'm in Germany and Karlsruhe, so put it here, and then set your address 1, address information, and pass your address. And so this is the service you call, and then this is the implementation of the service. So go there, impel. Might be a little bit slower. So here's the definition. You save your service. So even though you can control which part, how many size of the files you need to upload, and then control it, and depending on the user and depending on the role, and they did your job. So that's the test. When you run the difficulties for the running the test in the Maven projects, just you have to be run the test as like here, go there, Maven run test, run as a Maven test. So that means you define all the server says, all combination of test scenario, test cases. For my case, it's already only 2, just some definitions, and here the definitions, and you can do what you would like to do. So you can do more test cases in here. In the server side, when the server side test pass or is working properly, and then you can do then you can release, you can build your release note and generate the release and put it here in your Artifactory. So I did just like my all release here. So you see that when you push it to your like install, or even though you can write in command lines in the Maven commands to install and run or install the Maven projects. So it's, or you can do it clean and rebuild, and then you see the configurations, and this is the test of the server side, the automatically run the test. When you don't need to all the tests run, and we don't need to run the test again, then just you can just immediately ignore the test, and it's the build your applications. So I did the 2 release. Here see the very beginning release, the snapshot release, and here is your final release, the relatively final release, and go on, so on, so forth. So just what you need when you build your jar, and then you have to be copied this to jar into your configuration directory. And that means I will show you how is it done in the configuration directory. So that means we did our definition developments and configure our applications and test the server side. And this is the most important part. You has to be take care this part, because the application has to be handled externally, and this is the part. And then when this one done, and then finish your